In the hushed wings of Nashville's legendary Ryman Auditorium, a single mother in a security uniform stands guard with her loyal German Shepherd by her side.
Hey, it's okay.
5 years ago, she walked away from stardom to save her dying husband. Tonight, the man who destroyed her dreams will drag her onto the stage to mock her, never knowing that one honest note and one faithful dog will change everything forever.
Let's move out.
If this already pulls you in, like, share, and subscribe, because this story is just beginning. The old Ryman Auditorium stood quiet under a soft Nashville rain that January night, the kind of rain that taps gently on tin roofs like forgotten memories. Inside, the hallways smelled of polished wood and faint echoes of music long gone. Isabella Reed was 35, a woman who carried her years in the quiet lines around her eyes and the steady way she walked the corridors. She wore the gray-black security uniform every shift, black polo with the Ryman logo, cargo pants, low boots, utility belt, simple clothes that asked nothing of the world. Her long brown hair was always tied back neatly, out of the way, as though she had learned early that beauty could wait. Her fair skin looked paler under the fluorescent lights, but her brown eyes held a warmth that never quite left, even on the hardest nights. She moved with the careful strength of someone who had once stood under spotlights and now chose shadows. 5 years earlier, she had been a rising singer, voice like clear water climbing impossible heights, until the night she walked off the stage of Voice of Tomorrow without a word. Her husband James was dying in the hospital, lungs filling with fluid, and she ran to him. The cameras caught her leaving. The judges called it unprofessional. Liam Hayes, the famous judge with the slick black hair and practiced smile, looked straight into the lens and said, "Anyone who doesn't respect an opportunity doesn't deserve a dream." The words landed like stones. Doors closed. Offers vanished. The industry turned its back. Now she cleaned the same stage she once dreamed of owning, mopped the floors where legends had stood, checked locks after the crowds went home. She lived in a small apartment on the east side, 2 rooms and a narrow hallway, where the heat worked only in the living room. Every night she sat beside Charlotte's bed. Charlotte was 6, small and fragile, born too soon with a hole in her heart that needed $85,000 to mend. Insurance covered some. The rest was a mountain Isabella climbed alone. She sang to her daughter the old lullabies, voice soft and high, a rare tenor that still carried the same effortless range. Charlotte would listen, eyes half closed, small hand resting on the blanket, and sometimes whisper, "Mommy's voice makes my heart feel better." Isabella believed her. She had to, and always there was Rex. The German Shepherd was 6 or 7 now, black and tan coat thick and glossy, ears always up, eyes bright with quiet knowing. James had brought him home as a puppy just before the sickness took hold. "He'll protect you and the baby when I can't," he had said, voice already thin. Rex had grown into a steady presence, trained to sense tension, to press his head against a trembling leg until the breathing slowed. In the apartment at night, while Isabella sang, Rex lay at the foot of the bed, head on paws, listening. Sometimes he would let out a soft, low woof, in time with the melody, as though he remembered the evenings when James played guitar and the 3 of them filled the small space with sound. Those moments were the closest Isabella came to peace. She would look at Rex and feel James still in the room, not gone, only quieter. The dog never asked for anything. He simply stayed. She never spoke of the pain aloud. She carried it in the way she straightened her uniform each evening, in the careful way she locked every door, in the silence she kept when people asked how she was. The world had judged her once. She would not give it the chance again. But every night, after Charlotte slept and the apartment grew still, Isabella stood at the window, rain on the glass, Rex's warm weight against her leg, and she whispered the same promise to the dark, "I will keep her safe. I will sing for her, and one day, maybe, the truth will find its own stage." Then she turned off the light, and the room held them all, mother, daughter, dog, in a small, stubborn circle of love. The Ryman Auditorium glowed softly that evening, strings of warm lights draped across the old brick walls like quiet promises. Outside, a thin mist hung in the air, carrying the faint scent of wet pavement and distant river. Isabella walked her night shift with Rex at her side. The German shepherd moved in perfect step, ears alert, black and tan coat catching the dim hallway lamps. He was calm tonight, but there was always that steady watchfulness in his eyes, the same look he had given James years ago when the sickness first came. Isabella felt the familiar weight of the leash in her hand, a small anchor. She had learned to trust the silence between them more than words. The gala was in full swing upstairs. Laughter, applause, the clink of glasses. Voices for Hope, they called it. 500 people had paid $500 each to sit under those lights, believing every dollar would reach children like Charlotte. Isabella knew better now. She had seen the quiet spreadsheets in the office drawer. Only 15% made it to the hospital. The rest vanished into marketing, management, the shine of one man's name. She turned down the backstage corridor, the wood floor creaking under her boots. Rex's head lifted suddenly. His nostrils flared, body tensing. A low rumble started in his throat, not angry, just certain. He pulled gently toward the warm-up room door. Isabella paused. She knew that pull. Rex never tugged without reason. She followed, heart beating a little faster. The door was cracked open. Inside, Liam Hayes stood alone under a single spotlight. He was 43, tall, broad-shouldered, hair slicked back with the same careful precision he used on television. His black suit looked expensive even in rehearsal, white shirt open at the collar, dark red tie loosened. He looked every inch the star, except for the thin sheen of sweat on his forehead, the way his hands trembled just enough to notice. The band played the opening of Higher Ground. Liam's voice rolled out strong at first, practiced and smooth, but as the melody climbed, E5, A5, heading for that impossible C6, his neck tightened. His shoulders rose. The note came, clean and piercing, but it didn't belong to him. It sat on top of the music like a recording, metallic, separate. Isabella's breath caught. She knew the difference. Years of listening to her own voice in mirrors and empty rooms had taught her. Rex sat beside her, ears forward, eyes fixed on the man inside. He let out one soft woof, almost a question. Then the large screen in the auditorium flickered on. A slideshow of children with heart conditions, smiling, despite everything. One face stayed longer than the others, Charlotte's, eyes bright, small hand waving at the camera. Isabella's chest tightened. She had signed the consent form months ago, thinking it might help. Now it felt like a betrayal. Liam finished the song, cleared his throat, and called for the track to be louder next time. The door eased shut. Isabella stood in the dim hallway, hand on Rex's head. The dog pressed against her leg, warm and solid, reminding her without words. James's voice came back to her then, soft as a prayer. Protect them when I can't. She looked down at Charlotte's face still glowing in her mind, at the lie unfolding upstairs, at the money that would never reach the operating table. Something shifted inside her. Not anger, not yet, but a quiet resolve. She could stay silent another 5 years, or she could step forward just once for the child who believed her voice could heal a heart. Rex looked up at her, eyes steady, and gave a small, encouraging nudge with his nose. She turned back toward the stage wings, the music swelling faintly through the walls. The night was long, but the promise felt clearer now. She would not let the lie stand. Not for Charlotte. Not for any of them. The Ryman stage lights burned soft gold that night, spilling over the old wooden boards like spilled honey. The air held the scent of polished oak and warm velvet seats mixed with the faint hush of 500 breaths waiting. Liam Hayes stepped forward, microphone in hand, his tailored black suit catching every gleam. He smiled that wide, practiced smile, but his eyes flicked with something sharper, fear masked as amusement. He spotted Isabella in the wings, still in her gray-black security uniform, Rex at her heel. Without a word, he gestured, and the spotlight swung. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice smooth as oil, "we have a special guest tonight, our very own security guard who once thought she could sing." The audience murmured, some laughed politely. Isabella felt the pull like a hand on her shoulder. She walked out slowly, Rex matching her step for step. When Liam's words turned mocking, "Let's see if the janitor can hit the note I made famous," Rex's low growl rumbled deep in his chest. He stepped half in front of her, ears flat, body tense but controlled. The sound was quiet, yet it carried. Liam faltered for a heartbeat, smile slipping. The crowd noticed. Isabella met his gaze, calm now, the years of silence falling away like old dust. She spoke into the offered microphone, voice steady. "Turn off the track." Liam laughed, but it came thin. He signaled anyway, the music stripped bare. He sang first, pushing for the climb. The lower notes held, but as the bridge rose, his throat tightened, shoulders lifted, and the C6 cracked, sharp, jagged, a full tone and a half short. The hall went still. Isabella waited, then nodded to the band. No track, just voice. Rex sat at her feet, head tilted, eyes locked on hers. She began low, gentle, the opening lines of Higher Ground, like a lullaby she had sung 1,000 nights to Charlotte. Her breath filled the space. The melody rose, smooth, sure. When the bridge came, she did not hesitate. Chest to head voice flowed like water over stone. Then the C6 rang out, pure and clear, held steady. She pushed higher, D6, E6, F6, notes no track had ever dared. The sound filled the room, not loud but deep, like a bell struck in an empty church. Rex watched without moving, tail still, as though he understood every note was a promise kept. The final chord faded. Silence held for a long breath. Then the theater erupted, people standing, clapping, tears on faces. A sound engineer stepped out, pale but sure. "He's never sung that live, not once in 15 years. A producer followed, voice thick. "The track is Autumn Haze," paid and silenced. Whispers turned to shouts. Phones rose. Liam stood frozen, face ashen. Isabella looked down at Rex. The dog lifted his head, then barked once, clear, joyful, like applause. The sound cut through the noise, simple and true. In that moment she felt it all shift, the weight of 5 years, the judgment, the quiet nights. Not victory, not yet, but release. She had sung for Charlotte, for James, for the part of herself she had buried. Rex pressed against her leg, warm and solid, as if to say, "You did it. We did it together." The lights dimmed slowly. She stood there, breathing, the echo of the bark still in her ears, and in the quiet after the storm, she knew something had been mended, not just a note, but a promise long waiting to be fulfilled. The courthouse in Nashville stood gray and solemn under a heavy winter sky, the kind of gray that presses down on old shoulders. Rain tapped steadily on the stone steps, a patient rhythm like time itself, waiting for truth to catch up. Liam Hayes moved through the corridors like a man who still believed power could be bought. His suit was darker now, tie knotted tight, but the polish had worn thin. 43 years of spotlights had left him with a practiced calm, yet his eyes darted more often, searching for exits. He filed the suit quietly at first, $10 million for defamation. Then the stories began. Tabloids printed photos of Isabella's small apartment, called her desperate, ungrateful. They whispered about Charlotte's illness as though it were a prop. Sponsors wavered. The hospital received veiled warnings about future funding. Isabella read the headlines in the dim light of her kitchen, hands trembling around a cold coffee cup. Each word felt like a small cut, reopening old wounds. She had expected anger from Liam, but not this cold, calculated erosion of everything she had left. Yet in the quiet hours, when the apartment creaked and the rain drummed, she felt something deeper than fear, a slow, steady resolve. She thought of James's last clear words, "Protect Charlotte by any price." She would not sign the papers they offered, $185,000 to buy her silence, to erase the truth, to cover the surgery. The money tempted her in the dark, but the promise she had made held stronger. One night the crisis came. Charlotte woke gasping, lips blue, small chest heaving. Isabella froze for a heartbeat. Then Rex exploded into action, barking sharp and urgent, paws on the bed, nudging her until she moved. She called the ambulance, held her daughter close while sirens cut through the rain. At the hospital, doctors stabilized Charlotte, but the doctor's quiet words lingered. "We need the surgery soon. Time is short." Isabella sat in the waiting room, Rex lying at her feet, head on her knee. The dog's breathing matched hers, slow, steady, until the panic eased. In those long hours, she cried, silent tears, Usayishin falling onto Rex's fur. He lifted his head, pressed his warm muzzle into her palm, licked her fingers once gently. No bark, no fuss, just presence. She whispered James's words aloud then, for the first time since the funeral. Protect her by any price. The dog looked up, eyes steady, as though he understood every syllable. That night something settled inside her. Not peace, but certainty. She would fight. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled, smelling faintly of old paper and coffee. The judge, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and a no-nonsense gaze, listened as the lawyers spoke. Isabella's attorney, a young woman with kind eyes and a quick smile, mentioned Rex lightly. Our first witness, the one who discovered the secret. And the room chuckled softly. The judge allowed it. Rex could wait in the side room with Charlotte, who had been brought for moral support. The girl sat quietly, small hand buried in Rex's thick fur. When the judge denied the injunction, sanctioned Liam for frivolous filing, and affirmed the truth of Isabella's words, Rex barked once, clear, joyful, from the doorway. The sound echoed in the hush. Isabella looked at her daughter, at the dog who had never left her side, and felt the weight lift just a little. The storm was not over, but the lie had cracked open. She had chosen truth over safety, and in that choice she found a quiet forgiveness, for the years of silence, for the nights she doubted herself. Rex pressed against her leg as they left the building, rain still falling, but softer now, like a blessing. The Ryman Auditorium welcomed the morning sun that spring day, light filtering through tall windows onto the worn wooden floor. The air carried the faint scent of fresh polish and blooming dogwoods outside, a gentle promise after so many hard winters. Liam Hayes faded quietly from the public eye. Contracts dissolved one by one. Grammy Awards were reviewed and quietly revoked. And the last headlines spoke of bankruptcy filings in a small courtroom far from Nashville's lights. He had built his world on borrowed voices. When the truth came, the structure simply crumbled. Isabella did not rejoice in his fall. She felt only a soft sadness for the man who had once held so much power and chose fear instead. She thought of him sometimes on quiet evenings, wondering if he ever listened to his own recordings and heard the emptiness. But she let the thought pass, like smoke from a distant fire. There was no room left for bitterness. The victory belonged to something larger, to the children whose faces had appeared on that screen, to the singers who finally spoke their names, to the laws that began to change across states, requiring transparency in every live note. Voices for Hope had been a lie. Truth had become the new foundation. Charlotte's surgery day arrived under a clear sky. The operating room doors closed behind her small form, and Isabella waited in the corridor, Rex lying beside her chair, head on paws. 8 hours passed like a long breath held. When the doctor emerged, mask pulled down, eyes tired but smiling, he said simply, "She's through. The heart is strong now." Isabella's knees buckled. She sank to the floor, arms around Rex's neck. The dog stayed still, letting her tears soak his fur. Later in recovery, Charlotte woke slowly. Rex was allowed in first. He padded across the tile, tail low and careful, then jumped gently onto the bed's edge and lay beside her. His warm weight made Charlotte smile, weak, but real. The doctor watched, then spoke softly. "Her heart rate steadies when he's near. We can't explain it fully, but we've seen it before." Isabella held her daughter's hand, felt the steady beat beneath the skin, and knew this was the real gift. Not money, not fame, but time. Time to watch Charlotte grow, to hear her laugh without fear. Rex lifted his head, ears perked, as if he understood every word. In that hospital room, with the soft beep of monitors and the scent of antiseptic fading, Isabella felt the last piece of grief loosen and drift away. Months later, the Ryman stage welcomed her again, not as a guard, but as herself. She walked out in a simple dress, dark blue like the night sky, hair loose for the first time in years. Charlotte sat front row, small and bright, Rex at her feet on a soft mat. The auditorium was full, not of wealthy patrons, but of everyday people, nurses, teachers, single parents, the ones who had always believed in quiet courage. Isabella sang her new songs, voice clear and unadorned, telling stories of loss and return. For the final piece, she called Charlotte up. They sang "You Are My Sunshine" together, mother and daughter, voices blending like old memories. Rex joined in, barking softly in time with the chorus, tail thumping the floor. The audience laughed, then applauded, tears shining in many eyes. Isabella looked out at them and spoke quietly. "Rex, the gift my husband left us, taught me that loyalty and honest voice, whether from a dog or a mother, can change the whole world. We are never alone when family stands with us." The words hung in the warm air. Rex looked up at her, eyes steady and bright, as though he had waited years to hear them said aloud. The lights dimmed slowly. Isabella stood with her daughter's hand in hers, Rex's head against her leg. The auditorium held its breath, then released it in soft applause. In that gentle silence, she knew the journey had come full circle, not to perfection, but to peace. The truth had found its stage, and love had carried them home. As the lights fade on this old stage, remember, life's later years can feel quiet, even lonely, aches in the bones, empty chairs at the table, hearts heavy with memories and illness. But you're never truly alone. Your stories still matter. Your love still echoes. Hold tight to family, to faithful friends, even four-legged ones, and to faith. Share your own quiet courage below. Comment, like, subscribe, so others know they're not forgotten. May God wrap you in peace, ease your pain, and keep you close. You are loved, always.